Alright guys, TacticalRab back again today. Hope you're doing well and enjoying your day so far. Bit of drama going down as always ahead of the second weekend of the Major 4 qualifiers. Shotzzy giving his thoughts on the CDL players not playing at Pro 8 so much now as they were previously, saying actually if the players were paid less, that might be better to get these guys more committed to the game. And Scrappy also suggesting that online COD is terrible, despite all the talk about Bellfiber not that long ago. Is Octane right? The Scrappy's getting a bit complacent after their recent major victory. Very much intrigued to your thoughts in the comments below. Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you're new as always. I would greatly appreciate it. First of all, this is a phenomenal piece of work here from FaZe COD Muse, putting together all the first bloods of aBeZy so far this year. He has 100 first bloods this season, which is absolutely insane. He has like by far the most first bloods in the entire league. His ratio is insane, and he has #1 first bloods in the league, #1 first bloods per round in the league, most first bloods in a game at 5, most first bloods in a series at 9, and most first bloods against is Shotzzy with 13 so far this season. So, I mean, yeah, look at these numbers, right? Pretty remarkable stuff. It's ordered against which players that he's done it against. So, you know, these are all his first. So I thought this is beautiful to watch, actually. There's a couple against the subliners. I believe there was some issue where this game was played off stream, and I forget exactly what drama it was. I'm sure there was a lot of dramas in the CDL, but there was something that happened where this match was played off stream. So there were 2 that happened without getting to see who he did it against, I suppose. But nonetheless, I mean, look at this, right? Stanley, Mack, all the Seattle guys played them a fair bit as well. But it's against OpTic where he's really had Shotzzy's number. Like against all the OpTic guys, I mean, you can see how many against Shotzzy and Dashy and Ghosty and all this, but he's first-blooded Shotzzy 13 times this year. So whenever they play, OpTic have still got the better of FaZe, right, when they've played. But aBeZy and the Search and Destroy has been an absolute demon. And, you know, it makes sense. aBeZy and Shotzzy, clearly the 2 playmakers. And I'm sure Shotzzy's got a fair few back the other way. But this is just from aBeZy's perspective, just showing that, I mean, this guy to me is the MVP of the season, no doubt. The amount of impact that he's had, and obviously how good their Search and Destroy has been this year, no-brainer for me that aBeZy is the man to stop at the present time. Couple of quick things in challenges as well. Doug St. Martin is the proud 28-year-old cracked melee after the Boston Breach Academy team, of course. That was actually a pretty impressive clip from Doug there as well, and he fries these guys as well. But yeah, so the challenges elite, I believe, like the playoffs are going down pretty much now after last. I mean, this is also ridiculous from last night. Metals dropped 46 kills in this game. So Metals, you guys might remember on the, well, he was actually briefly on the Toronto Ultra bench, I think, back in the Modern Warfare days. But previously to that was on Heretics during the Black Ops 4 season. Had a great year that year. And, you know, just it's difficult for these guys to get back into the CDL. But I do think that Metals and some of the other Spanish guys have a great chance if London does move to Madrid next year. I don't know if it will. I don't know what the owners are going to do. But I'm sure there must be interest in those new Spanish owners to get a Spanish team in play. Guys like Metals, you would imagine, would be pretty much top of the list for them to sign going forward. Eric Boom and others as well are in a similar boat right now from the Spanish scene. Also from Crimsix, I try and keep up a little bit with how he's getting on, because I know that he's been putting in a lot of time lately, Crim, to try and catch up to the level of these pro sim racing drivers that he's competing against right now, because he was pretty much way off the pace at Hockenheim when they had the race a few months ago now. But Crim, I think, has been getting a lot faster. He's been streaming it, and there's a race on Friday, so definitely will be staying tuned for that one to see how Crim is, you know, because he was a good couple of seconds off the pace. Hopefully now he's a bit closer and more competitive with these guys. And, you know, P11, here we come. There's 12 people in the race, so if he can get 11th, I think that would be a good step forward at some point in the near future. Let's talk about Scrappy then, right, because Toronto find themselves in rather an interesting spot right now. They were, to me, quite clearly maybe an S-tier team. I would say they were probably an S-tier team after the major, just because they won it. They were better than every team they played. They were great in all modes. But now they've played 2 games online. They've played Surge. They played Boston. They've lost both in Game 5. So, you know, I don't think it means that much in the grand scheme of things. But this week will prove critical for Toronto to prove that they still are where they need to be going forwards. Because 0-4 in Search and Destroys that past weekend, not impressive at all. Now, Scrappy in the match, the final match of the weekend, actually, FaZe versus Mutineers a couple of days ago now, talks about their situation online and basically says this game is terrible online. Now, it's kind of funny for him to say this, especially because before the previous major, the majority of Ultra's points had come from an online setting. They'd done a lot of their work online, 4-in-1, this type of stuff in split qualifiers, and then at the majors, they'd got top 6 and hadn't been particularly impressive, to be honest, until their major 3 run, where they won the entire thing. Even Dashy was saying not long ago that these Ultra guys insane online. Scrappy seems to disagree, says the game online terrible, inconsistent. Not like I disagree, but pretty interesting subject. But Octane, I thought, now Octane is like part joking and part joking around here, right? But I just thought the amount of times he said that, oh yeah, Scrappy, getting a bit complacent, right? You won that event, getting a bit complacent. It's happened to the best of teams, happens to the majority of teams, you could argue, to be honest. That when they win an event, they're not quite going as hard for the next event as they have been before. Even Shane said recently that he reckons the champs curse, which is where a team that's won champs has never ever won another event with the same roster of 4, might not just be down to some weird curse, but because the team after winning champs, like, you know, that's the goal, right? And they're not going to go quite as hard after that as they were before. So now Scrappy's got his event win. Is he and the team going to kind of take their foot off the gas pedal a little bit? That might be one of the arguments here.
What's good, Scrap? How we doing, Ernie? What's good, bro?
What's going on, Ernst?
Nothing's going on. We're tweaking. We're tweaking. Get on 2K, bro. Stop getting complacent. You want to major, act like it.
Getting baited in, bro. Nah, for real, but I gotta get prepay, bro. For real.
Bro, you want to major? Stop getting complacent. Like, Jesus Christ. It's your rookie year, bro.
Highs and lows, bro. You're chilling. Fourth tournament. Who cares?
Nah, that's crazy.
You already won your tournament. Who cares?
Bro, you're playing a game with 0 skill gap. Like, somebody's gonna kill you once.
Get haggy cheesing, bro. There's so much skill in this game.
Yeah.
Oh, God, I ain't never seen Sam lose a gunfight. Bro.
Oh, boy.
Get a trophy down 6 corners.
You've got 3 players alive and 2 of some.
I don't want to say it though. This game online is.
I knew it. I knew it. I knew it. I knew it. I I'm so free. Oh, I would have bet the over on that 100%.
Nah, that's crazy.
I just don't use it sound EQ, so it's just 80.
I don't either. Stop bitching, bro.
That's cap.
Oh, I know you're losing full too.
I am, but I don't bitch about it because I'm decorated.
Wow.
I'm bitching about it now. Like,
really difficult to hit this shot.
That's crazy, bro.
Get it together. Yo, wait.
Oh, what a reach.
Yo, Scrappy, as soon as y'all lost, I knew you were bitching about it. Oh my God. Instantaneously.
But also, it must be said, right, the idea of Scrappy talking about online COD being terrible. Now, I don't know how good the Bell Fiber really is. I know there was some time during the Major 2 qualifiers where everyone said, wow, this Bell Fiber is out of control. Because in fairness, iLLeY, when he was on the OpTic team and he had his visa issues or whatever the case was, and he was in Toronto's facility in Canada and played for those guys, he was frying for that weekend. So people thought, okay, and then when he came back to Texas, his numbers went back to normal, and people thought, well, damn, maybe just iLLeY played great that weekend. Maybe it wasn't the Bell Fiber line. But, you know, still, people say Toronto's internet is great. This was, I believe, when OpTic lost to Toronto Online, and Dashy says online COD is comedy. Like, I'm just saying that those guys are unreal online. But now Scrappy seems to disagree, and in fairness, this past weekend's, as I say, 0-4 in Search and Destroys, lost to Surge and to Boston Online. It can happen, but it still will be a frustrating weekend for them. So improvements to certainly be made from the Toronto side. Scrappy does say GG to those guys. Tough weekend, but we'll be back in business relatively soon. But still, definitely one to keep your eyes on, right? Because does Octane have a point? Is he even speaking from some personal experience of winning events and feeling like, all right, well, maybe I'm not going to go quite as hard now, and then really kicking things up potentially again towards the end of the year. So we'll see how it goes. But if I was a fan of a team that was then complaining about online stuff, I always find that a bit frustrating because, you know, yes, online isn't ideal, but fundamentally it's a mindset thing, right? And you've got to feel like you can maximize the chances of your own success. Now, leading on from this quite nicely is a discussion from Shotzzy just last night on players not really playing too much Money 8 at the moment. So a few months ago, Pro 8s, Amateur 8 were happening all the time. The pros constantly getting into games, squadding up with the guys. Okay, ranked players changed the way that's worked a little bit, but frankly, even back in Cold War, this was a big discussion that pros weren't playing that many 8s matches, and it happened at the start of this year, and since then, it's kind of fallen off a fair little bit. So Shotzzy was giving his thoughts on this last night, and basically said the players that should be paid less, and this has been a big discussion lately from Aches and Parasitans, comes up every so often, that back in the day, the good old CWL days or even before, the players were playing for their livelihoods every single tournament. They were there for the prize money. They weren't satisfied with getting paid their salary from their team. They needed the prize money from that tourney to actually, you know, live a comfortable existence, right? They needed to buy food, they needed to pay rent, and they did that by winning tournaments and at least getting far in them. Whereas today, you know, the incentive isn't quite there in the same way. The players are getting guaranteed a salary. I'm not saying that's bad, right? I'm not saying those players shouldn't be guaranteed a salary. salary to play Call of Duty at this level. It is a job fundamentally. You're representing an organization. There should be a salary in play. But the fact that some of these players, especially on the worst teams in the league, are, you know, maybe getting a little bit comfortable, right? Maybe they're playing their matches, just playing for kills to try and ensure they look good and stay on the team. But they don't really care fundamentally if they win or not. They can go out top 8, they can go out top 12. They don't really care. They're getting paid to fly around the world. They're getting paid by the team regardless. And are they turning up to 8s to try and get better? Probably not. And that's what Shotzzy said. He's like, look, a lot of these guys, like if they got paid less, they would actually grind more. They would try and be better. They would try and elevate themselves and play better in their matches. But they're not, and that's an issue for them.
We need 2 for Pro 8s, lock him in, and... Bro, it's impossible, dude.
That's possible.
It's the middle of the year, bro, where people like they don't give a f just yet. Like wait one more month and we'll be straight.
Like after this major, I think reality will set in. It's like, wow, I'm dog champs is around the corner.
Nah, I think we need to start getting paid less, dude, or some.
Yeah, bro. I think prize pool needs to mean more. You know what I mean? Like people should like be like, oh, I gotta perform well, so I make like I can eat like good. No, but it, like mean more. Like,
dude.
So I do think Shotzzy makes a very interesting point, right, about how players nowadays don't seem as committed as they were a few years ago. Okay, maybe towards the end of the year, as he says, players have realised that they actually suck and they need to get in some of these ace matches again. But yeah, it must be said that the best... Some players, right, Simp and others have said in the past that 8 kind of gives them bad tendencies, makes them play worse. And you can understand that, fair enough. But fundamentally, if you're playing the game on a more regular basis in a competitive environment, you're going to probably do better than not playing it at all. It depends, right, that there's obviously other things in play, but a lot of these guys, they might get on and play scrims for a few hours, watch a bit of VOD, and then get off for the day, right? And maybe that's fine. Like, if you've already played tens of thousands of hours of Call of Duty, then sure, you've already got everything down. But to be honest, when there's a new game every single year, more time invested probably does return better results in general. I just remember with Scump back in the day, like when he was really on top of his game and he loved the titles, he was playing so much COD every day. He was playing the scrims, he was playing the 8s at times, he was playing, of course, well, pubs as well for montages and for gameplay commentaries and all this stuff, and he was putting in so much time to the game, and that was when he was at his best. And in the coming years, when the game wasn't so fun for him, he put in less time in those certain fields and maybe wasn't quite the player that he was before. So look, I know a lot of people miss the kind of CWL days, right, of when the players were turning up to events like this, and I mean, the open bracket was kind of remarkable to think that you could have like 256 teams turn up to the open brackets. The top 4 would get into the group play, they would get their chance on the stage to play up against the pro teams. They would usually get fried on Saturday morning, don't get me wrong, but it was still cool to see. Nowadays, this isn't happening anymore, but a lot of these guys, even back here in these days, they like to have some of these organizations now defunct, unfortunately, with, you know, Era, Red Reserve, United and stuff. Some of them are still around, some of them have left COD, some of them are still here in different formats. You know, Luminosity are kind of still Seattle Surge, Splice, I mean, OpTic, of course, FaZe, etc., Envy have now become OpTic. Like, lots have changed. Splice is basically Toronto now as well, the way that's gone. But a lot of these guys weren't getting paid a crazy salary even back in 2018. It was starting to happen now that a lot of the top guys were getting paid something that would keep them ticking over. But even in this season, there was arguably way more incentive for these guys to actually try and win, because, you know, nowadays you can get away with not doing so and you'll still be doing okay financially. It's a bit of a controversial one, but does make you think about and realize why certain individuals might be stuck in a rather tricky spot. But very much interested to your thoughts in the comments below. Hit the like button if you enjoyed, subscribe if you're new, take care, and I'll see you next time.